Hello, I am Joshua P. Warren, and this is Joshua P. Warren Daily. And have you heard the news? I bet you have. It's been all over the place. It is mainstream. The New York Times broke the story. A Pentagon advisor said that the Pentagon is about to release some stunning new materials, and he said that they have, quote, off-world vehicles not made on this earth, end quote. I'm going to repeat that. Off-world vehicles not made on this earth. This is serious. Now, of course, again, the New York Times broke it, and now it's all over the place. You know, it's all Fox News, CNN, Popular Mechanics. It's in all the foreign media. So let me give you the rundown on the story here. In fact, if you go to the Popular Mechanics coverage, their headline is Pentagon has off-world vehicles not made on this earth. And then it says bombshell. The government's once clandestine UFO program will reveal findings on unexplained materials and crashes. This just broke today, this story. And let me hit some of the bulletin points here from Popular Mechanics. The Pentagon's on and off once covert UFO program is decidedly back on and will soon reveal some of its findings to the public. An astrophysicist who consulted on the UFO program confirms the government possesses materials from, quote, off-world vehicles not made on this earth, end quote. You're going to hear that probably a lot the rest of your life. It's almost like one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. If this is the first time we're having an official announcement of alien technology, I mean, this is a famous line. It says the news comes on the heels of the Navy's official release of 3 notorious UFO videos. And they actually start out in their article saying, for years, the U.S. government has repeatedly changed its tune regarding its official involvement with UFO research. As recently as February, a Pentagon spokesperson told Popular Mechanics that while a government program did investigate unmanned aerial vehicles, or UAVs, and other unexplained aerial phenomena for some time last decade, funding dried up in 2012. But when Popular Mechanics thoroughly investigated the covert program, multiple sources said it's still ongoing to this day. And now a new report in the New York Times confirms those accounts. The government's UFO unit currently resides in the Office of Naval Intelligence, where it deals with classified matters, per the report. Here's another. Let me switch to this coverage also. This is from The Independent in the UK. A Pentagon UFO unit will make some investigations public as ex-advisors suggest that vehicles not made on this earth were placed in U.S. government storage. The team will update the U.S. Senate's Intelligence Committee on its unidentified UFO research, unidentified flying object UFO research, every 6 months, the New York Times reported on Thursday. Publicly named in 2019 as the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force, the Pentagon unit succeeded an investigative UFO program that was said to have been disbanded prior to 2017. Okay. One former official, astrophysicist Eric Davis, told the New York Times that he briefed the U.S. Department of Defense in March about the retrieval of, quote, off-world vehicles not made on this earth. The Pentagon consultant and subcontractor said objects he believed, quote, we couldn't make ourselves, end quote, were discovered during his time on the unit, where he has worked since 2007. While no crash artifacts have ever been documented in public, Harry Reid, the former Democratic Senate Majority Leader, told the Times that he, quote, came to the conclusion that UFO materials were in the government's possession. He said, quote, "After looking into this, I came to the conclusion that there were reports, some were substantive, some not so substantive, that there were actual materials that the government and the private sector had in their possession," end quote, said the former senator for Nevada. It is not known what details the Pentagon unit will provide to the Senate, while Acting Intelligence Committee Chairman Marco Rubio said last week that his priority was to uncover who was behind the unidentified flying vehicles seen over American military bases. I'm going to play for you some of Marco Rubio's interview. He was interviewed by a reporter named Jim DeFeedy for CBS Miami. That's local channel 4 there in Miami. And of course, Marco Rubio is the chairman of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence. Now, if you're not exactly sure what that means, the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, sometimes referred to as the Intelligence Committee or the SSCI, is dedicated to overseeing the United States intelligence community. The agencies and bureaus of the federal government of the United States who provide information and analysis for leaders of the executive and legislative branches. Okay, this is where the buck stops. This is the top of the line when it comes to the intelligence field. So here is what Marco Rubio said when he was asked by this CBS reporter days ago about UFOs.
Are we alone?
No, look, here's the interesting thing for me about all this, and the reason why I think it's an important topic, okay? And that is we have things flying over our military bases and places where we're conducting military exercises, and we don't know what it is, and it isn't ours. So that's a legitimate question to ask. I would say that, frankly, that if it's something of outside this planet, that might actually be better than the fact that we've seen some technological leap on behalf of the Chinese or the Russians or some other adversary that allows them to conduct this sort of activity. But the bottom line is, if there are things flying over your military bases and you don't know what they are because they're not yours, and they exhibit potentially technologies that you don't have at your own disposal, that to me is a national security risk and one that we should be looking into. And so that's the premise I begin with.
Let's clear this up. Who would be looking into this? And they would be generating some sort of a publicly available report on, you're not using the phrase unidentified flying objects. You have another euphemism for it, unidentified aerial phenomenon, which is not.
Yeah, I didn't come up with that. That's the one that the military uses internally, and ultimately, you know, that's the one we used. And what we're saying, yeah. So the Office of Naval Intelligence, has impacted the Navy for the most part. Have seen reports on this now for the better part of a decade. Other countries have had similar reports, and so. But for our perspective is, there is someone flying in the airspace that no one else is allowed to fly in, and we don't know who it is, and it isn't something we have. We need to know what that is. I mean, that's in my mind. I mean, I don't understand why we wouldn't want to know what it is. Maybe there's a completely sort of boring explanation for it, but we need to find out. And so that's really what we're asking about, and we're asking them to make public as much as possible that information. None of that really fits into the mold of classified per se.
All right, but what's your gut? Are we alone in the universe, or is there something else out there?
I don't have a gut feeling about it because it's a phenomenon. It's unexplained. I just want to know what it is, and if we can't determine what it is, then that's a fact point we need to take into account. I wouldn't venture to speculate beyond that.
Well, as you can hear, you and I have lived to see the day when UFOs and aliens are no longer laughed about. Remember what I said about the paranormal becoming normal? And then the real scientists, the quote-unquote real scientists, step in and say, "We'll take it from here, boys." And they forget about all of us who have been trying to get the message out for years and years and years when it was the taboo and perhaps even ridiculed thing to do. So, this is a really exciting time. If this does not make you extremely thrilled, then your threshold for excitement is pretty damn high. So we don't know exactly what they're going to show us, how much they're going to show us, but just the blatancy of saying, look, we're not talking about some exotic material. We're not talking about some microscopic life. We're talking about off-world vehicles. What a term to use, a vehicle. So, not made on this earth. Not made on this earth. And I wonder if that's going to piss off some of the people at NASA because they're spending billions of dollars and going through all these elaborate processes to try to, scoop up some dirt and see if there's a microorganism in it. When this whole time, these military guys have had advanced life, advanced craft. I mean, obviously, if they call it a vehicle, that means there was something inside of it. So we're not just talking about, this is not just the car. There has to be the driver in there, right? So it looks to me like this may be the first acknowledgement of advanced extraterrestrial life. And what's interesting is that we're going out there to places like Mars trying to see what they have, when in the meantime, some of this very advanced life has been obviously coming here. All right. That's what it seems like, anyhow. And if you also combine this with what we're doing right now with the Space Force and the fact that we are trying to colonize Mars, it all just sort of adds up to the timing being right here. And I must remind you, if you've been listening to this show for a while, in 2018, I created a minion and I gave it the goal. I charged it with the mission of going out there to inspire the mainstream media to announce alien life. And in 2018 is when all this stuff really started taking off. And now here we are on the cusp of something that could be gigantic and change everything. And the funny thing is, if they come right out and say, look, we have an extraterrestrial craft and extraterrestrials on it, there you go, finally, the cat's out of the bag. I don't think it's going to be that shocking to people at this point because their nerves are already dulled by all the other shit that we've been going through this year. So it's probably a good time to do it. And I know some people are still going to freak out, but look, it's again, maybe the cat's out of the bag. So we'll keep an eye on that, and I will try to give you the first updates, even if it's just popping on here for 5 minutes. And I don't always send out a newsletter, when I do a podcast. So that's why it's important for you to subscribe to my podcast through whatever means you have. Whatever platform you like iHeart or Stitcher or Apple, or just follow me on Twitter, because I usually tweet when a new one is available at Joshua P. Warren. And I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of breaking stories over the next couple weeks here. And so I'm just going to pop on there and just give you an update. And so you want to stay on top of this stuff. But you see, the thing is with my e-newsletters, I can only send out a certain amount of those per period, but I can tweet anytime I want, as much as I want, and I also can post a podcast whenever I want, as much as I want. So you need to stay on top of this and make sure you're informed. Let me give you an update on some information from my last podcast. So I talked about this image of one of these sort of V-shaped craft that was flashed for a moment on the screen in the most recent episode of the TV program called Unidentified, in which they said it was from Texas, or they alluded to that. They suggested it, and I was immediately struck by it because it looked so much like what Dean Morsing and I and a couple of other guys had seen in Laughlin, Nevada about 11 years ago. Turns out my audience came through. My audience came through. A number of you contacted me to say, look up the Wichita Triangle, as in Wichita, Kansas. And I looked that up, and if you do the same, boom, there's the picture. There it is. But I realized that what they showed on the TV show was a bit misleading, because this is a larger image. And in this image, you can see that that triangle or that V shape, with that, which on the actual picture, it looks more like a triangle with only the V leading edge showing. It has an exhaust or a contrail or something like that behind it, and it's moving fast. They edited that out when they put the image on the TV show. What Dean and I and Dean Jr. and Will saw in Laughlin, it was moving very, very slowly. It was low, it was quiet, and it didn't have any type of exhaust or contrail or anything like that. And you think that we would have been able to see some of that through night vision. So to my knowledge, this is not the same type of craft, but at least that image that I sent out to you will give you an idea of like how a triangular shaped craft can just appear as that V shape if you're just seeing that leading edge. And in fact, that picture was taken in 2014, and I see why that they mentioned Texas, because there were two major sightings of these types of triangle craft in 2014. The first one was in March of 2014. That was in Amarillo, Texas. And then the next month in April was when the Wichita sighting happened. And so most people tend to believe that these pictures show some kind of top secret military craft being tested. So again, I don't think that is what we saw, but it's so cool that I can put a picture out there like that and say, this looks very similar to what I saw. Does anybody have any more info on it? And guess what? Within 24 hours, I have all this new information. Here's the second thing I want to tell you. I have a follow-up for you on the WTF footage from Chaz Stumbo that was captured in the haunted house. Okay, a lot of people have been looking at that and giving their opinions, but I haven't gotten a lot of opinions. Most people are just scratching their heads and they're not sure what they're seeing. So let me give you a little more feedback on that. Chaz got onto my Facebook page and was kind enough to give everybody a bit more detailed backstory on this clip. Now, again, I'm talking about the one where you're looking at the night vision shot from the security camera inside this abandoned house, and you see these little sort of pinpoints and darts of light shooting and drifting around. It's very, very strange. So Chaz says, here is a little backstory on the clip, which I didn't know at the time I shared it. The house is located in San Diego, California. The owners are the original owners, and the house is 50 years old. There is an Indian burial site across the street, which was discovered when the area there was initially being prepared to be developed. Boy, that sounds familiar, doesn't it? Anyway, he says it sits empty because the wife is currently battling Alzheimer's. A friend of mine brought up an interesting theory. In many Alzheimer's cases, older memories are able to be accessed by the victim, but new memories don't stick in their minds. His theory is that maybe when she's remembering the house as it was a part of her, as it was, let me start that over. His theory is that maybe when she's remembering the house as it was, a part of her is actually astrally traveling or remote viewing it. Her energy is potentially fracturing. So what we may be seeing in this video is a part of her energy accessing a memory of the home she lived in for 50 years and actually manifesting there in some way. May be a bit far-fetched, but interesting nonetheless. Wow, that's kind of deep, isn't it? I mean, I understand what he's saying. This goes back to what we've discussed regarding our magical thinking about the relationship between what's in the mind and what happens in the external environment. So wouldn't that be wild to think that, she's thinking back on the house and we're seeing little figments of her thoughts flitting around? That's one of those things that kind of gives you goosebumps, doesn't it? Wow, that could be a whole new phenomenon to look into, whole new field of study. Very interesting. And of course, we always welcome skepticism and doubters. There was one guy who posted here saying he thought that this was hoaxed in some way. And Chaz very calmly and reasonably has responded and said, look, this footage is directly from the security system, downloaded right from it. And he said, I appreciate your analysis, but Chaz went on to say, the person I got this from has no interest in faking it, and we've been friends for almost 30 years. And he just put it out there in hopes of getting responses so that we could all, chime in here and try to figure out what we're looking at. Crystal Ayers, she posted here on Facebook, it's like we're seeing a small part of something, as though most of it is in a frequency that we can't see. Yeah, I'd say you're right about that, Crystal. That's what we deal with often when we are investigating the paranormal. We get to see little portions of it, but we don't get to see the whole thing. The tip of the iceberg, or it's like the shadow of things that happen to fall from one dimension into our dimension. So, hey, how cool is that? That I can do a podcast and I can talk about some extremely weird stuff and ask for input and get all this great insight that helps us, at least think more deeply about these things. In some cases, we can factually determine what's happening. In other cases, we just get more, good ideas and more good information. And this is why what we do is so positive and exciting. And in fact, I have got some wild emails that I have been saving up to read for you. And one of them, and I'm not going to read them in this podcast. Okay, for the main thing I wanted to do in this podcast was just update you on this whole off-world vehicles not made on this Earth situation that we're that we're dealing with here. This perhaps historic moment. In my next podcast, though, I plan on giving you some wild emails. One of them comes from a guy in North Carolina who used a wishing machine in order to manifest a Bigfoot encounter. And he describes it in such detail that honestly, I started, because I've never tried to do that, to manifest a Bigfoot, and I started to sit down and say, well, I'm going to try that. And then I thought, this sounds kind of scary to me. Like, I'm not sure that I really want to come face to face with something like this. You'll hear that story, and you'll hear a story about a creature that, oh boy, it's a good one. You just wait. So I've got some freaky emails I'm going to be reading to you soon. Speaking of wishing machines, though, when I go out into the field and I'm trying to manifest something paranormal, and I've had success getting UFOs to appear in front of a crowd, or create paranormal activity like ghosts at a haunted castle or whatever, I always bring one of Dr. Mulder's Model Field X machines. It is the portable 9-volt battery powered machine. It's very small, compact, it's durable, it's got all the bells and whistles. And I bring that with me whenever I travel or I'm out in the field doing an experiment. And it doesn't have to just be used to try to enhance paranormal phenomena. When I'm traveling, I use it to get upgrades on airplanes and at hotels and or just whatever, to make sure the weather is nice. I use it all the time. And even though it is a popular product, as you know, the wishing machines are all personally handmade by Dr. Mulder. And so he just has too much of a workload. That's the truth. He's made thousands of machines. And so we are going to have to start cutting out some of the options because he's got too much going on. And so the most time-consuming machine that he makes is the Model Field X, the portable one. So that's the first one to go. He's only going to be selling it for a few more days. And so if you are interested in being one of the last people to ever get this machine, I'm not bullshitting you, go to wishingmachineproject.com, wishingmachineproject.com, and if you look down on the right-hand side, it'll say something like, looking for something portable, click here. For the Model Field X, and there you'll see a video where I'm talking about it and demonstrating it, and you'll get all the info. And if it'll let you buy it, then he still is willing to make them. If it won't, then oh well. But you only have days left, and he just doesn't have the time anymore. So those will be very, very important for those of you who actually are fortunate enough to get one, knowing you have something so rare. So again, that is wishingmachineproject.com, wishingmachineproject.com. Okay, that's it for this update. I know I'm going to have another good one for you soon. I'm excited. I feel kind of like that kid Christmas morning waiting to see what the Pentagon is going to reveal. So stay on top of this. Go to joshuapwarren.com. Be sure you sign up for my free e-newsletter there. You'll get a free good luck charm digitally, instantly when you do that. I hope that you will check out the Curiosity Shop, see things that are, things you won't find anywhere else in the world. But most importantly, I hope that you'll click the link to this podcast called Joshua P. Warren Daily. It is always short. It's always free. It's always commercial free. It's uncensored. It is independent. Be sure to subscribe through whatever platform you like. Once again, it doesn't matter, Apple, Stitcher, iHeart, whatever your thing is. Or just follow me on Twitter, at Joshua P. Warren, because I will usually tweet when a new one is available. So, that is it for this particular podcast. Exciting times, my friends. So thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest and support. Thank you for staying curious. And I will talk to you again soon.